around the room, you'll see that you're not so alone after all, and that unconfidence could look like any of us. Maybe your whole life you have been told that the best wins, but I'm telling you right now that the best known will win. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another fantastic episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast. I'm your host, Tara LaFon Gooch, and you're in for a treat today because I am bringing on my friend and coach, I will say that, Karim. Now, Karim has a really interesting story, and we'll get into that. But what he has done with his life is nothing short of incredible. So he is a leadership hypnotist. Yes, you heard that right. And an amazing one, I might add. He's also an international TEDx speaker, and he's joining us right now from Australia. Karim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. G'day, everyone. Good morning.
I love the accent, by the way.
Thank you.
So you've done all of these amazing things, and your TEDx talk is phenomenal, by the way. Everybody should watch it. You know, there's a lot of misinformation out there about hypnosis, what it is, what it isn't. And what I love about what you do specifically is that you work with leaders to help them be even more effective. And you're actually working with me, so I can't wait for, the full reveal. But it's such an interesting thing, and I'm really glad I did it. So I just want to start off with that because I'm really glad I found you, Karim. I think it's just going to be great from here. But I would love to hear a little bit more about your story, what you're doing right now, and then I want to take us back a little bit further as well. But let's hear about some of the amazing things you've got going on right now.
So the amazing things that I have got going on right now is really paving the way in how businesses rethink business. Mm-hmm. So businesses at the moment, or leadership at the moment, if they want to do better for their business or better for their leadership, they've only got a few options. They can re-strategize their business concept. They can bring in stuff like HR to try and improve the culture of the business. They can increase their marketing, right? So things like, if I was a business owner or a founder or a CEO of a business, I'd be like, hey, I really want to retain my team, the best people. So what I'll do is I'll bring in HR to try and improve some things. So I'll bring in maybe a coffee machine, or I'll bring in, awards days, or I'll bring in, yoga mats or table tennis tables, right? Yeah. But then I think they're totally missing the mark, because what happens is that people these days, especially the younger people, they're yearning for more connection within the business and within the leadership team. And if this person who's driving the bus, this business owner or this founder or the CEO, is not connecting with the staff or with the team, then they've totally missed the mark. And what happens is that these people that are driving the business or this bus are making the wrong decisions. They have beliefs that don't really align, or that shouldn't align, with the business values. As an example, someone up the top in the leadership team, the manager or the boss, if they can't communicate effectively to the team, and the team can't really feel safe having discussions or feedback or just having conversations, no matter how many table tennis tables, no matter how many coffee machines you buy, nothing really changes. We're just trying to put a Band-Aid over a deeper problem.
Yeah.
So what my philosophy is that things need to be changed from top down. And it's not as simple as me approaching this founder or the CEO and just say, hey, you've got to change, mate. Like, you can't keep yelling at your staff. You can't keep expecting them to do these crazy hours. You can't, you have to recognize them. Although, even if they may know these things, there is something that happens inside of them that they can't help but get frustrated. There is something that they may not help but just not, but just shut off and just put up this wall or whatever it is, right? Or they may be so stressed that they're self-medicating, right? Or they're drinking or whatever it is. And then that puts them into this loop of not making the correct decisions, let alone connecting with the rest of the team and the business. So then they need someone like me, right? Who specializes in this. And I get to the deep-rooted reasons why they're not wanting to communicate effectively, why they're constantly triggered by frustration or anger. And I help remove all those negative stuff that have been impacting them for so many years so they can become the best versions of them, so they can make better decisions in their business and retain and keep their best staff and make more money.
I love that. That's what it's all about. But, it's interesting because these blocks that we all have, and I mean, let's be honest. If you're living, you have blocks. It just is what it is, right? And it could be caused by many things. It could be, limiting beliefs that we had from childhood, how we were raised, how we were brought up, experiences that we had. And, these thoughts, these experiences can become beliefs, and it can cause us to act and show up a certain way. And it may not show up in the ways we think. Right?
Yeah.
And, when you're a CEO of a company, when you're in a leadership position, it's not about you anymore. You have a whole team of people that depend on you.
Yes.
And oftentimes, if we don't get these things addressed, it can lead to attrition rates increasing. It can lead to a loss of ability to attract top talent. It can lead to culture diminishing over time, toxicity. And it's not necessarily an intentional thing. I don't believe that a lot of times. I don't think it's intentional, but we have these blocks, and it's our duty and responsibility as leaders to address them, don't you think?
You're right. You're right. It's no longer about you.
Yeah.
Once we cross that line of wanting to scale and we bring in people, there is a certain amount of responsibility that we need to take on. And what might have worked when it was just you in the business might have worked well, actually. May no longer work now that you've got other people within the organization. So people are stuck on first gear, right? And they're trying to do the same things that they were doing that used to work, but may not work now. And what I'm finding is that they can't get past that second gear. And so they're highly stressed. They are in this hamster wheel, in this quicksand, and they're trying to work harder and trying to do the same things, but they can't get off. And then they come home exhausted. And then they're thinking, why me? Why isn't my business working? Why is the world against me? Why is the universe, why am I failing and why are my friends doing well? And we get into this cycle of, becoming helpless. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm.
It's interesting. And I talked to you about this as well. Just last week, it really dawned on me that I needed this. And first off, I applaud anybody who raises their hand and says, I need help, right?
Yeah.
Because the first step is just getting out of your own way, regardless of who you are. So I applaud anybody for raising their hand and saying, you know what, I'm not quite where I want to be. I need a little help getting there. I don't know how to do it on my own. So I'm going to reach out to somebody else. So I did it. I'll be the first to say I did it. So if anybody wants to reach out to Karim, please do. He's great.
Thank you.
But it occurred to me that I needed this, and I wasn't quite where I wanted to be. And I told you what the trigger really was for me. It was, I watched a video on social media, I think it was Instagram, and you were talking to a gentleman who's a photographer, and you said to him, how will you know this has worked for you? Right? And I liked that question because you weren't telling him, you'll know this works when. You asked him the question, how will you know if this has worked for you? And what he said was, I'll know it worked for me when I'm not angry.
Mm.
And I thought that was so powerful. Now, I don't have anger problems. I came to you for a different set of things. But after you had completed a hypnosis session with this gentleman, you asked him a question. And the question you asked him was, so how do you feel about this? And the look in his eyes, he said, I don't know. And you were like, okay. So, and he was like, oh. And it was like, it hit him like, oh my gosh, I'm not angry about this anymore. And at that moment, I realized I needed this too, but for my own set of issues, because we all have them, right?
Mhm.
And I thought, well, what does it hurt to give it a try? And, we talked about it. And I said, I'm going to think about it. And I took a shower. And what was it? 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, I texted you back and I said, I'm ready. Just send me the invoice. I'm good to go.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Because I said to myself, this is what I said to myself while I was in the shower. We do our best thinking in the shower.
Yes.
I said, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Mm.
And that was enough for me to say, just try it. Just do it. You have nothing to lose, because and again, I can't be the one getting in my own way, right? So that was a very powerful moment for me, Kareem. And I think a lot of people listening to this, maybe they've had, again, this pent up, maybe it's anger, maybe it's resentment, maybe it's frustration, maybe they feel like they have a money block.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's jealousy. Who knows what it is? But these little blocks that we have, or big blocks, whichever the case, can really get in the way of us living our best life.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, you're living this amazing life now. You're helping other leaders accomplish these great things and overcoming these huge blocks. But was it always this way for you? Was there a time in your life when things were a little different?
I'm getting goosebumps. Very different. The person that you're seeing today is totally not the person that I was, say, 5 years ago or 6 years ago. So the thing that came up with me is that I was in business too. I had settled into a new business, very confident, right? I had this big, massive ego that this can't fail. I've had many businesses before. I had just finished my MBA, so I was like, piece of cake. And the same week that I settled into my new business was the same week that we had our first child. Now, let me tell you.
I'm feeling for you already, by the way.
Look, I just assumed that it was going to be like, rainbows and lollipops, and, I'm going to come home to a smiling wife, to a smiling baby. I'm going to go to sleep. The baby's going to be fed at night. I'm gonna wake up, I'm gonna go to work whistling and all happy and go to work. It felt like someone had got a baseball bat and just hit me over the head with it like 10 times. Because what ended up happening was, apart from the usual, stuff that happens with pregnancy, post-pregnancy and all that kind of thing, my son had colic.
Mm.
So for those who don't know what colic is, that babies get digestive issues and pain. And we didn't know what colic was. We didn't know what was going on. So he was waking up every 20 to 30 minutes. That meant that my wife was waking up. That meant that I was also waking up to try and support her and him. And I was going into work constantly, already on the back foot, sleep deprived. I didn't know it then, but I used sleep as a coping mechanism for me to help with my anxiety. I didn't know that I had anxiety. I just thought that this was normal, that these racy mind, these racy thoughts, probably undiagnosed. Sorry about the fireworks. Probably undiagnosed ADHD. I thought this was normal, but I used to sleep because I was so exhausted all the time that this was my coping mechanism. And since that was taken away from me, everything was now exposed. I could not lead properly. I could not make decisions properly. Slowly but surely, my business started to spiral further and further down. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on? I've done everything right. I'm doing everything right. Like, looking back at my MBA manual, I'm thinking, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I've had businesses in the past. I've even brought on business coaches and business consulting, increased marketing budgets. Nothing was working. And what that did is it re-triggered me, because it triggered another thing that came into my life. As a child, when I was 2, we came from Egypt because my parents were persecuted. They were told to leave Egypt. Dad was a big businessman in Egypt. He was wholesaling petrol. And because of his faith, they were told that they needed to leave. So we were suddenly in Australia without the language, money, or a job to go to. We were pretty much homeless. We had to sleep with family and friends. And that brought up a lot of things for me, because it was like, oh my gosh, my parents came from Egypt trying to get a better life for us, trying to help me have a better life for me. And here I am, just screwing it over. Here I am doing the same thing, that I'm back to square one. And I'm a bad father. I'm a bad husband. Who am I? Like, I had all these things that were coming up for me, that I'm such a bad parent, such a bad provider. All this guilt started to come up. And I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't pay the staff wages. And I just felt like I was being choked. And then one day, Alex, she was coming back with my son, going for a walk, and she found me curled up into a ball, crying hysterically, being so anxious. She just dropped everything and just was so panicked because she didn't know what was going on. And this was the lowest point in my life, because I had failed everyone, including myself, including my son. I was just a failure. And I was like, why me? Why does everyone else get to be successful? Why does everyone else have a good house? Why does everyone else have, the perfect family? Why me? I'm not a bad person. And I was, in that moment, I was feeling like I was so stuck, so restrictive. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to quit. So one day I was just sitting down on the couch and I was just flicking through Netflix. I was in my underwear, to be honest, right? I was feeling sorry for myself. Like, I was like, life's over, I'm finished, I'm done, all that kind of thing that you do when you're feeling sorry for yourself and feeling down. And I remember watching Tony Robbins. It came up. And he had this big, massive energy about him. And he was like, he was helping people all over the world globally in such a short time. And he must be doing something right. I was thinking to myself, what is this that he's doing? It was calling me. It was something inside of me was calling. So I did a little bit of research and I understood what he studied, what he was famous for. And that was neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. So I looked and studied and I Googled, the best schools in Australia for NLP. And that was the start of my journey. And when I went through this journey, I really understood a lot about me. And the most defining moment was Karim, when I had a mentor in this school ask me, Karim, what is the link between the anxiety and the depression that you're feeling now and your childhood?
Mm.
And it was like...
And you had never thought about that. Had you thought about that before?
I had never thought about that.
Wow.
And that was one of the most defining moments in my life, because growing up, after coming from Egypt, I had a severe stutter. Or a stammer for you guys. I'm not sure what you guys call it.
We say stutter of the voice. Yep.
Yeah, and I couldn't speak.
Wow.
And when I was in primary school, the teachers thought that I just couldn't speak English. They put me in the too hard basket. By the time I went to school, I was only speaking English. I couldn't speak anything else. But they just thought, Karim's not speaking. He's just probably too shy. He can't speak English. So they put me into a different class. They took me out and they isolated me. They took me away from my peers and they put me into a class called English as a Second Language, ESL. Now, this is where the kids thought this is where the dumb kids go. So I was always labeled as the dumb kid.
Yeah.
I was just shoved away. I probably had learning difficulties too, dyslexia, ADHD.
Yep.
And because of all these things, I grew up with this chip in my shoulder thinking that no one wanted to be my friend. I was the dumb kid. I was stupid. I was fat. I wasn't popular. I was never deserving enough. Things in my past were always scarce growing up with not a lot of money. So there's a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety.
Mm.
And what I didn't realize is that I was carrying all those things through my life. And I didn't put the link together. So even all the way up into my late 20s, into my early 30s, I was an overweight, balding 30-something living at home with my parents still, right, with no money. I was pretty much George Costanza with a smile.
You're better looking and funnier, but yes, I get you.
So this is the person that you see today. I was a lot heavier. So I had weight loss surgery twice.
Wow.
And even after the second weight loss surgery, Tara, I was still putting the weight back on.
Wow.
Because I didn't really understand why I was eating in the first place. I didn't understand my anxiety. I was eating to numb my emotions, to numb my anxiety. And when I learned this one thing of, Karim, what is the link between this anxiety and your childhood? It was like an explosion went off inside of me. And it was like a light went on.
Mm-hmm.
And I could finally see the mess in the aisles that I had created for myself over the years. And it's the mess that I could start to clean. Because I felt so liberated just with this tiny bit of information.
Wow.
And that was the start of my journey. And when I started to do this human behavioral stuff, not just NLP, I started to learn a lot of hip other stuff because I just wanted to learn more.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't they teach us this in school? Why am I learning this now in my late 30s? my business started to go up. And it had nothing to do with business.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with numbers. It had nothing to do with marketing. It was all about me. And I couldn't stop but think about this. Because here I was, I just spent nearly $100,000 on my MBA. I've done businesses in the past. No one's ever taught me this about business. So my business started to do well. I started to become a better father and a husband. So it was like a 2-for-1. So I sold the business and then I went all in on this because it was my true calling. It was my purpose that I needed to learn more about this. So then I can empower other business owners who are stuck feeling the same way, because as far as I knew, no one was really addressing this problem. No one was solving this. And I remember, Tara, when I was in bed feeling sorry for myself. I remember thinking, if I can solve this problem, that I promised God and I promised the universe that I would help solve it for everyone else.
That's beautiful.
And here we are.
Wow. And you know what? So many people are going to listen to this and say, maybe they'll have that revelation too, that light bulb moment that says, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I had a coping mechanism. Right? It could be alcohol, it could be smoking, it could be food, it could be intimacy things, it could be sleeping, like you said. What is an activity that any of us are doing to escape?
Yes.
And then take it back a little further and ask yourself, what are you escaping from?
Yes.
That's when you can finally start to unravel and become the person that you're meant to be right there.
Yeah.
It's really powerful, Karim. And,
Yes.
you had this journey where, you're obviously smart. And you know what? You and I had, there's, every time I talk to you, I'm like, oh, that's another reason we connected, right?
Yeah.
I went through a similar journey growing up. So, right now I have my MBA as well. But, while I was growing up, I I was so unconfident and shy. And I had some trauma at home that when I would go to school, I remember this so vividly. So stop me if this sounds familiar. In elementary school and primary school, when you're sitting in a circle and all of the kids are reading in a circle, and you have a line or two, the teacher will say you have 3 lines to read. And I would go ahead and count and then look in the book and only read my lines because I was so scared I would mess up and I would be laughed at and ridiculed that I really didn't take information in. And they thought I wasn't, they thought I should be placed in a lower class, not because of IQ or anything like that, but I was so petrified of messing up that I would only focus on my part and not get the whole story. And it led me to this like perfectionism tendencies as an adult that says, just don't screw up and you'll have friends. Just don't screw up and people will like you. And, that was something that I feel like held me back for a long time. Does that sound familiar to you?
Very, very
Mm.
familiar.
There's no coincidences, is there? The universe brought us together for a reason, my friend.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly how I was. Even this, like a similar thing, we would have math quizzes.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher would be like 2 times 2, and I would know it.
Yep.
But because of my stutter, I was just staring at them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to sound like, stuttering sounds silly, right? Especially for 6 or 7-year-old. It sounds, especially for kids. And I didn't want to be ashamed with how I sounded, so I just didn't say anything.
Wow.
And then the kids and the teachers thought that I was stupid. I didn't know my times tables. And it had this roll-on effect of not only was I stupid, but I couldn't express myself, Tara.
Yeah.
Imagine having all these emotions and feelings and not telling people how you felt.
Wow.
So I learned just to be quiet, but also have the loudest mind.
Yeah. That really resonates.
Mm.
And I feel like, again, we all have this to a certain degree. It may not be school, it may be something else, right?
Mm.
But I would encourage anybody to, really listen to this. And this might be one of those episodes you listen to twice because, as I was unraveling this for myself and deciding if this was something that I needed, I told you this. I was watching, I'm a science geek, so I was watching a show and they were talking about laboratory mice, and they have a set of laboratory mice in a cage. And every time the mice would leave the cage, the door, the mice would get shocked. And eventually the mice learned not to leave the cage. Well, the interesting thing is the next generation of mice that came, there was no door. And they didn't get shocked, but they didn't leave the cage because they had an imprinted memory. So this is scientific evidence now we're talking about. So, us as humans, we're really complex creatures. So if we think of a very simple laboratory mice, you think of even highly advanced creature like a human being, we can have generational trauma. We can have trauma from our actual past, from our childhood. And then it can kind of compound like really bad interest. So,
Yes.
we can have all of these things happen to us in our lives. And again, some of it, maybe even most of it, is not even our baggage to begin with. This could be
Yes.
limiting beliefs that our parents or some relative or a teacher or a schoolmate said to us that becomes a belief system for ourselves.
Yes.
And then what does that do to you, and how does it cause you to show up?
Yes.
And I really encourage anybody listening to this, this is for anybody. So I know we're talking a lot about like CEOs, we're talking about leaders, we're talking about, people like that, but honestly, this should be for anyone, I would think. Don't you think, Kareem?
It is. It's for anybody. So people are like, Karim, do I need to be in business? And I'm like, no. This is for everybody.
Yeah.
And you've made this point so well, because a lot of people are like, I'm nothing like my parents. And like, lo and behold, they've got the same traits, and they're like, no, but I'm nothing like them. But there are some traits. And what ends up happening is that people go through this generational cycle of making the same decisions, the same trauma. And even though they hold this resentment or they hold this belief that they are nothing like what their parents, they want better, I assure you that there is still some traits that you're holding on from your parents.
Wow. That'll be our next session. All right. I'm not asking you to perform miracles, but we'll get there eventually, right? But I knew there was limiting beliefs within me. I couldn't.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, I tell my clients this: you can't see the holes in your own ship. You
Yes.
cannot. You cannot. It's not possible. And the funny thing about it is, you have such a great way of probing questions. When you were asking me these questions, I look back at it now, I just laugh, right? But at the time, it was really serious. I'm like, this is what's happening, and I just can't, figure this out, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of our session, what was I doing?
You were giggling
I
hysterically.
was giggling like a lot, like too much,
Yes.
because I realized how silly those beliefs were. Now, these beliefs were things that I was holding on to, right? Because we
Yeah.
all do. And when I came to you with this, I was like, this is a real serious thing. I can't seem
Yes.
to, this is exactly what happens. And I don't know why I do this and XYZ. After a session, I laughed hysterically at my own self. Like it was the funniest joke in history, because it was. And I realized how silly it is to hold on to stuff. And sometimes you just need a third party perspective to help you see the holes in your ship so that you can fix it and sail on. Isn't that right?
100%. But also, Tara, some people are thinking, oh, hypnosis, I'm going to click my fingers and you're going to cluck like a chicken. What was
That's
your experience? And right? What was like what was your experience with hypnosis, and what can you tell others about what hypnosis isn't like in Hollywood?
yes. So you don't uh I don't now I was hypnotized, so maybe I did click like a chicken. We didn't I don't know. We didn't record it. No, I'm just kidding. It's not how you think it is. You're sitting in a chair or however you're the most relaxed. You close your eyes, and while I'm closing my eyes, or the person who's being hypnotized is, you're talking, and maybe it's going back to a specific date or time or something like this. And it's really easy. It's guided. It's not like how you think it is. It's a relaxed state, I would say. And then you start to ask questions. And the cool thing about, well, I say it's the cool thing, your subconscious mind knows it all, right?
Yes.
It's your conscious mind that gets in the way. So while you're in this relaxed state, someone like you can ask these questions, and the first thing that comes up, and I remember one question you said, when was the first time you felt like this? And I said 7,
Mm,
right? So then you
yeah.
said, that's right. That's right. You were
Yes.
7.
Yes.
Take us back to, let's go there.
Yeah.
And so that's how hypnosis is, folks. It's not a magical trick. There's nothing
No.
mysterious about it, really. It's just you're in a relaxed state and someone else is asking you questions, and it's a guiding thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well put. Well
I
put.
love it.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I'm excited to do it again. I'm ready because I have more
Yeah.
black scream. I've since this first session with you, I've identified like 5 other blocks. I'm like, this is a problem. This is
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the good thing is it's okay. It's normal, and that's
Yeah.
why I want to talk about this, and that's why I have this podcast in general, is to show people that I'm not perfect, and it's okay if you're not, and this is how we get better together, right? And that's what it's all about. It's daily self-improvement. But I do want to mention this because a lot of our listeners are really, really big into positive affirmations, and I
Mhm.
am as well. But I will say this, after my experience working with you, this might be a little controversial, but no amount
Yeah.
of positive affirmations is really going to fix a limiting belief and block. You need someone else to step in for something like that. Isn't that right, Kareem?
Yes. Because it lives in your subconscious. These affirmations that you're trying to change consciously or in your conscious mind, it doesn't really work that way, because if it lives in your subconscious, then you're just trying to continuously run uphill with a whole lot of baggage. Sooner or later, you tend to fall again, and you tend to fall into the same habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. And I was thinking just like a lot of people are thinking. If I just do positive affirmations every day, maybe I'll say them 3 times a day,
Hmm.
and it does help. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm a firm believer in they're a good positive thing in everyone's life. We should do them.
Yep.
Is it 100% the answer? No, right? Not all the time. And I think we need, more people out there like you talking about these kind of things because honestly, again, we need somebody that can say to us, why do you do that?
Yeah.
Just like you said to me, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't know why I do that. That is kind of silly. Isn't that silly? Because if I wouldn't have had that session here, I would have gone again, and no amount of positive affirmations is going to fix my limiting belief that I have about whatever it is that I have, right? So these things are important and they do help.
Yeah.
So such wisdom today, Kareem. I'm so glad that you came on the show and shared your experiences with us. And this really goes to show that you can go from anywhere and become whatever you want to be,
Yes.
right? By fixing yourself first.
Tara, the only thing that's holding you back from an exceptional life, the only thing is a belief that you've held on to in your subconscious.
Wow.
You are one belief away from living the best life that you can ever live.
I love that. And that's good. That goes for anybody listening to this show right now. You're one belief away from living your best life. So don't let these limiting beliefs hold you back. They're garbage. We don't need those. They
Mm.
weigh us down, right? They don't serve us. If it doesn't serve us, if it doesn't elevate us, if it doesn't get us to our fullest potential, it's blocking us and getting in our way. So let's get them out of here. So on that note, Kareem, thank you so much for being a fantastic guest on the show. But I know everybody's going to say, how do I get a hold of Kareem? How do I get in touch with him? So what are the best ways to get in touch with you, my friend?
I am everywhere. So if you just type in my name into any socials, you'll find me, Karim Boktor or karimboktor.com. Yeah, I'm everywhere. Hit me up, send me a DM, send me an email, whatever it is. Yeah, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I am offering for the listeners here a special invitation, a free 30-minute session. So if anyone wants to understand more about their subconscious or what's holding them back, yeah, happy to give that out for the listeners today.
Wonderful. That's great. I definitely encourage everybody to reach out to Kareem. Like I said, I'm working with Kareem myself. So you have your hands full for a couple of months because like I said, I have a honey-do list. We're just gonna check them off one by one, my friend. Right? Yeah. So that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. I can't wait for our next session. And thank you for everyone who tuned in. Guys, seek help, raise your hand, put yourself first because you are worth it. You are worth being confident and living your best life. We will see you on the next episode. Take care.